Alright, so OP here is asking, is it weird to prefer being called Miss First Name as a teacher? Personally, if I ever became a teacher of anything, fun fact, like that was my goal when I was in high school. I wanted to be a teacher to the point where basically I didn't, to the point where like I actively rebelled, having to do anything that didn't, that I didn't see a direct correlation between that and like, uh, anything that I didn't see a direct connection between whatever, like algebra, and like becoming a Japanese language teacher, which was my goal. Like anything I had to do that didn't bring me closer to that goal, I hated doing in high school. I know better now that, problem solving that comes up in algebra is super important, and, other, there are other things that you learn in other topics and in other school subjects that are, just all around important for whatever career you choose. But back then I was pretty adamant at like only focusing on what would bring me closer to becoming a Japanese language teacher. But ironically, I mean, school would make me so tired because of all the other stuff that it wanted to teach me that I wouldn't have the energy to put in the extra effort to study Japanese language outside of school and put in the effort to find those resources, so I could, get better at my Japanese. And I blame myself for that. I take responsibility for that. But yeah, like just kind of a possible path that just kind of didn't work out. But if I did become a teacher, I'd feel weird when students would call me by my last name, my last name. That to me, that never rubbed me the right way. The idea of being called by my last name, because I guess because like personally I never felt a close connection to my last name and like my family heritage in general, because my exposure to Spanish culture was just like, oh, being dragged to parties my parents went to, hosted by like their friends, or my dad throwing parties for his friends. And like they never taught us the Spanish language because, in my mom's words, we were too surrounded by English/American culture for it to make sense. Even though a lot of Spanish parents, teach their kids Spanish just fine, like, but it is better to know English rather than like be fluent in Spanish and struggle with English. So like, as a result, I never got like exposure to my actual culture. But yeah, I'm going way off topic. But yeah, that's the benefit of my videos, is like you come in for one thing and you'll get that one thing, but you'll also get a bunch of like story times with cool hot takes. Anyway, maybe that should be what my video is, what my username is, cool story times, not cool hot takes at this point. I give way more story times than hot takes, but maybe I will change it eventually, my username. But anyway, let's get back to this. OP says, so I just received my master's in childhood and special ed and have been frantically applying for jobs as the school year closes out. Congrats on your master's, and hopefully you do find a job that treats you well, very well. I hope teachers in general keep getting better treatment. OP says, I honestly prefer being called Miss First Name rather than Miss Last Name. Same. This is for a variety of reasons. My last name is long and hard to pronounce. That's a issue too. And shortening it to Miss F has never really felt like me. Also, oh gosh, with Gen Z, a teacher called Miss F, you will be the bottom of all the freaking kids' jokes. Like, press F in chat, like, gosh. that could be a really good thing or a really annoying thing, depending on how with it you are and how okay you are with those jokes. But it can be just annoying as heck. I could see it now, depending on who you're teaching. Gosh, it'd be so annoying. They said, I've always disliked my last name ever since I was a child and never felt connected to it. Same. They said, I don't like, personally, I don't dislike my last name per se. I just never felt connected to it. Anyway, they said, for the past year and a half, I've been an intern and also a student teacher at one school. When I first got my job, I was told to go by Miss last name, which I was uncomfortable with. It never became an issue in terms of respect from kids. Okay. So did they not go by their last name and went by Miss first name, and like the kids still respected them? If so, great. You'd be able to go by your first name. Yeah. Miss first name. Anyway, they say, I wonder if it even matters if you use Miss, like, just let people call you by your first name, but like, you still have, maybe you do need the Miss to like maintain that authority. I don't know. But like, maybe like in cartoons, kids think it's cool when their teacher lets them call them by just their first name, but like, then, the kids feel like they can get away with more. So yeah, I'd say keep the Miss. Anyway, small thing. Okay. They say also at my school, several of the male support staff go by Mr. First Name. Yeah, that is a trend that I've seen in schools I've gone to. Yeah, and that has never seemed to be an issue. As time went on, everyone began to call me Miss First Name. Kind of going back real quick, I wonder if there is a trend where men can get away with that more easily than women. But anyway, so they started calling her by Miss First Name, and it's been completely fine. Honestly, my first name is also a last name, so most kids don't even realize that it's my first name. That's interesting. She says, my concern is getting a job at another school. Will I be able to voice my opinion as a new teacher to prefer I be called Miss First Name? Honestly, I think that if you got away with that as an intern, where they probably are more likely to like reprimand you over little things like that, you could probably get away with that as a teacher, especially if it doesn't, come up too much with administration. But, administration is always different and has their own quirks at any school. So it's kind of a toss-up, but I'd lean toward you wouldn't get in trouble personally. The OP says, or will I be forced to go by Miss last name? I don't want to be seen as unprofessional, but people seem to think I'm being childish. That's not fair. No, you're not being childish because you just don't want to go with the archaic, old-fashioned Miss last name, You should be able to do what makes you feel comfortable, and I'm sorry that you're getting flack for that, OP. Like, that's not right. But let's see what commenters have to say. One person says, I want to be called Mr. Last Name, Master of All, Keeper of Children, Breaker of Spirits, and Giver of Knowledge, first of his name, but instead they call me Mr. Last Name, or Mr. Last Initial. That is the kind of teacher that I like being taught by. The person who's just like, the person who could throw out those kind of LARPy jokes and just like, be, part of that geek culture in one way or another, even if it's just with like dad jokes. Those are the best teachers. Well, maybe not the best teachers, but like, the teachers who like really dedicate themselves are the best teachers. But like, teachers like that with that sense of humor and that laid back personality are freaking great. Somebody else says, if your next job has an issue with Miss First Name, then you could try doing a shortened version of your last name. For example, if your last name is Wolowitz, you could go with Miss Wool. That's what one of the teachers at my kid's school does. Yeah, so you don't have to be just Miss F, because that'd be, Yeah, also there's the obvious reason of being called Miss F. F is a grade in the American grading system, which means you failed something. So that'd be pretty off-putting to students, especially if you teach like a notoriously hard subject. But yeah, someone else says, ugh, I hate being called Mr. First Name. That's a Southern thing as far as I can tell. I didn't know it was a localized thing, but yeah, like I understand there'd be people who don't like it. They said, that said, my first and last names are easily reversible, so I've had problems with that my whole life. I imagine that plays a part in my distaste. Yeah, totally understandable that, your history plays a part in that opinion. Like, everyone's history plays parts in whatever opinions they have. Totally understandable. Someone else says, just state your preference. I don't think it's a big deal. Yeah, state it to your students. Don't necessarily have to tell administration to their face. Set your standard from day one with confidence. No apologies. There you go. I wonder if OP would be cool if they just had that preference with their students, but not necessarily faculty. Just to lower their chance of being reprimanded. But anyway, someone says, my colleague here does this. I don't think it's an issue. No one told her she can't do it. It's just a preference, so I wouldn't see why anyone would care. I wouldn't mind being called my first name, except that's actually longer and more complicated than my last name. That's a sucky position to be put in if you prefer being called Miss First Name. Kids would always be getting it wrong, and I wouldn't be any happier. That sucks. And last commenter says, you stand your ground with what you want to be called. Yeah, be somewhat comfortable at your job. Just because we are teachers doesn't mean we have to roll over and do whatever is customary. I'm in a small town school, and my kids call me just by my last name. I love that, people calling people by just their last name, that kind of military style way of addressing people. I don't know, I really like that. Especially, I don't know, I just really like that way of addressing people for some reason. They say, I'm okay, that's how I like it. My principal talked to me and said it's respectful for kids to call me Miss, but she cannot control what I'm called. I'd still prefer my first name compared to my last name, but yeah. I still do like that, just the last name thing. Anyway, they say, stand your ground. You deserve to do what's most comfortable for you. That's a great, bottom line for this. Anyway, if you're a teacher, what do you prefer being addressed by? If you're a student, what have been the most notable ways that teachers have asked to be addressed by? Comment below, let me know. Like and subscribe if you like this. I've been CoolHotTakes. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. I should really change my username. And I should really zoom in so I don't struggle so much reading. Anyway, thank you. Have a great day.